live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton, Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Monday, July 15th, 2019. Happy birthday, Mark, if you're listening, by the way. I did, in fact, get notification from my computer, which tells me everything about everybody's birthday. So what's going on for the rest of you? Those of you for whom it is not a birthday, and I guess those of you for whom it is still have to keep up with the news. The president's a racist. Just thought I'd say so. And I guess it's important for everybody to note. I hope you'll all get ready this morning to go back to wherever you came from, because that's the new fashion. Lots to catch up on, of course. There's the racism. There's the people calling out the racism. There's the people not calling out the racism. There's the people insisting it isn't racism. And don't worry, though. In the very end, you won't have to do anything about it. That's the good news. He will self-deport, Donald Trump will, at some point, and everything will be okay. We're in a wild situation. Golly, I can't believe it. It is the week after Netroots Nation and the 130th week of the presidency of Donald J. Trump, believe it or not. And it looks like, I guess, he's going to make it all the way through, because why would anybody impeach this guy? And so we have lots to work through, lots that the Congress isn't doing but could be doing. They, I assume, will be on their way back to Washington, D.C. today. The Republicans having had the day yesterday to do their show prayers, I guess, consult in church, figure out what they should be saying about the racist president, and they'll be back on the record. It is a work day for them, but they won't be here, of course. Monday, very often, and especially during the summer months, a travel day, if anything at all, for members of Congress to get back to D.C., but they'll be here and they can start getting chased down in the hallways starting this afternoon. Maybe a pro forma session or some suspension bills. I'll have to check what's on the schedule for this morning, but by Tuesday, supposedly, they'll be back at work, sometimes not until Tuesday afternoon. They're only going to be running around until Thursday at the latest before they take off again, so this is your chance, Washington, D.C. reporters, to corner them in the hallways and ask them whether maybe sort of kind of almost aren't really Democrats the real racist. I guess if that's the way you want to frame the question. There's plenty of that going on. Let's see. As we mentioned, Netroots Nation has come and gone from Philadelphia. It was very easy to reach for us East Coasters. Next time, apparently, as is the practice at Netroots Nation, easier for someone else next time. Denver, I guess, is the 2020 location for Netroots Nation, happening in August next time around, so as not to conflict with the Democratic National Convention, I suppose, in July. Although I now find that conflicting with the Democratic National Convention in July next year will be my big vacation plans, so that's really good. I probably shouldn't have planned it for then, but that's what we got. So I'm already disappointing you. Come July of next year. But really, by that point, you'll want to watch the show on television, and you'll probably have had your fill. And I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to need me cheerleading for nominees at that point. I think you'll all be enthused, because that's professionally what the whole thing is supposed to be about. All right, so let's see. We can round up all the news this morning. No. Some of the news, probably. The big ICE raids threatened for over the weekend once again sort of failed to materialize, at least on the scale that they were talking about. It may just be the case that Trump really has not got the capacity to conduct the raids at the level he keeps threatening, and never will. But I guess you never want to rest. You always want to stay vigilant about these things. And I guess, I don't know, I guess if they were really going to be rounding people up, I don't know whether it's really Trump's style to announce ahead of time that they're going to do it. You know, he loves to think he has the element of surprise. So I don't know what to make of that. And I can't tell anybody to relax about it, especially if you're actually on the bubble and under threat of arrest or deportation. And I guess that could be anybody, because Trump also spent half the weekend telling American citizens born here or otherwise that they had to go back where they came from. And, I mean, I don't need to fill you in on that. You heard all about it. I don't think there was anybody that missed that one yesterday. It was very depressing. It kept me quiet for a lot of the day yesterday, even though there were lots of other problems that were contributing to keeping me quiet. It was a tough day yesterday, and yesterday morning was hard to get through. The whole weekend really was hard to get through, because Saturday wasn't even all that easy either, as I was scanning the Twitter machine on Saturday and watching people complain about the House leadership and Nancy Pelosi and others not moving forward on impeachment, and grousing quite correctly that, we were, I've got here on hand, as a matter of fact, the tweet I was responding to Saturday morning from Yeggo, that's Yeggo on Twitter, whose more malleable handle is currently set at better than Ezra Klein, saying, since I worry losing the forest for the trees, here's where I land on the Dems, and, try and keep your chin up. But a lot of people are here at this point. We were told we had to win last year. We did. Nothing changed. We're being told we have to win next year. That's not cool. I understand the feeling, and of course I think I have a feeling that both Diego and I are in the same place. We really do have to win next year, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure that happens. But it is disappointing and annoying. But I mean, that's life. My only comment on that one was happy 2007. I feel like I've been here before, and I bet there are people older than me who feel like they were there before 2007 as well. It didn't go over all that well immediately, and not everybody got exactly what I was talking about, but I did see this morning a tweet from a news source for me, Classic Rathjen, who I don't know, but repeating or letting us all know. I thought a good comment. I'll admit, he says, this sums this up. If you missed my own comment or didn't get exactly what I was talking about with Happy 2007, he says, I'll admit that until I saw this tweet, I'd forgot that W had committed an unambiguously impeachable crime by conducting warrantless surveillance in violation of the laws and Constitution, admitted it on TV, and when Dems and Pelosi took the House, they made it legal after the fact. And that's a bit of a quick glossing over of the entirety of the subject, which is perfectly permissible in a tweet, but pretty much substantially correct. And yeah, that's what I was talking about. I feel like I don't know. I can't believe that there aren't more people who smack their foreheads and say, where have I heard this before? Oh, we'll have oversight, subpoena power. We'll have the power of the gavel, and we'll get things, but we have to win. And we do. I mean, in order to get the power of the gavel, if you're ever going to get it, you do have to win. Winning is no guarantee that you're going to get that gavel. That's true also. I mean, for many, many years, Democrats have won a vast majority of the votes cast for Congress, and by that virtue should have been handed the gavel, and yet gerrymandering makes it possible to not hand them the gavel, and that only set to get worse. Of course, it's all very depressing, but I will say this. All you have to do is, and it's harder for some of you than others, all you have to do is get up and go out at some point during the voting period next time around. That may be all some of you can do. There's more that could be demanded of many of us, but given that all you really have to do is get out there and pull the lever, check the box, fill in the oval, and yeah, there are various excuses for why that might not work or won't work as well as you can. But if that's what's actually being asked of you, go do it. There's really no reason not to. There may be a coup and you lose control of your democracy forever, and that's true. And no one would fault you, though, for not showing up at the polling place with an AR-15. Just fill in the oval. If you want to do more than that, fine. But that's the bare minimum that's required from you, and it's mostly not that difficult. Some of you will have to wait in line for several hours. That is true. They will make it difficult for you. They will try and revoke your right to do it. They will show up with their own AR-15s and say you can't. Many of you will have it a lot harder. That is true. But for those of you who don't, at least, show up, fill in the oval, pull the lever, do the thing you're supposed to do, and do the minimum, and we'll try and sort the rest out along the way. That's the best I can tell you right now. Good morning, Greg. How are you? Where have you gone back to? Your
good morning. I'm fine, thank you. You know, I have to say, one of the huge advantages of being an incrementalist is that you don't get depressed by this stuff.
I guess that's true. And
because, things don't happen overnight, and there's no one thing, and Mueller isn't going to save us. It's all part of a process. And part of that process is Trump revealing in no uncertain terms to everybody else that we already knew that he's a flaming racist.
Yes.
And he can't hide it. And the images that came out, for example, I just sent you a picture of the digital New York Times, for example.
Yes, well, it's only coming by in increments.
Trump fans the flames of a racial fire. Trump taunts Congresswoman of color. Opinion Charles Blow. Trump's tweets prove he's a raging racist. I mean,
that's true.
It's really hard to hide this anymore. And you can't... you can't keep going on saying, well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that these are controversial tweets. They're not controversial. They're racist. And the Washington Post yesterday had racist as part of their headline as well. These are all bad things that happen to the country and good things for media to wrap their head around the fact. Even Brian Stelter from CNN was wrestling with this because he was ad-libbing a live show.
Yes.
And asked the question are these racist tweets, and made it a question, and then basically apologized on Twitter yesterday and said, I was doing this live. I really shouldn't have made it a question. It's pretty obvious these are racist tweets. I mean, when you have the so-called neutral people desperately trying to be neutral, being forced to say it's all part of the racism, then you step back and say, okay, well, that was Sunday, and Saturday was the day that Mike Pence at the concentration camps, not paying attention and pretending everything was okay, was part of the discussion for the weekend. And if you think that Trump tweeted this and therefore distracted from Pence's visit and the baby jails, it's all part and parcel of the same thing. It's all completely and totally racist. Trump is being pretty naked about it. And it's pretty clear that that's how he intends to run his entire campaign for the fall of 2020. And the polling says that doesn't work. I mean, that the more Trump is Trump, the more support for immigration goes up, the more people get turned off by his racist rantings. The more he loses the suburbs, the more he loses the big cities. Sure, his base will love it. So what? NBC Wall Street Journal poll out this weekend, I think, highlights a lot of that. And, I like polls. But one of the reasons I like polls is not because they're predictive, but because they tell us stuff. Okay? Yes. And so what does the Wall Street Journal, New York, NBC Wall Street Journal poll tell us?
Which one?
It tells us Trump is losing.
All right. Good.
Right. Our new NBC Wall Street Journal poll from yesterday. Results are the first hypothetical general election matchups. Biden 51, Trump 42. Sanders 50, Trump 43. Warren 48, Trump 43. Harris 45, Trump 44. What is it about Kamala Harris that makes her even, whereas everybody else is leading? Is it name recognition? Or is it Trump racist tweets and reaction to a strong black woman running? We don't know. That remains to be seen. But even Harris winds up beating Trump by a point here, which is basically a tie. And what's consistent here is not the Democratic number, ranging from Biden's 51 to Harris's 45. It's Trump's number. Against Biden, Trump is 42. Against Sanders, Trump is 43. Against Warren, Trump is 43. Against Harris, Trump is 44. His range is 42 to 44. His approval number in the Wall Street Journal poll is 45. It's a bit unusual to underperform your job approval. Usually it's the other way. You're a point or two higher because, like, inertia.
And no hold your nose voting, apparently.
Exactly. Hold your nose and vote against is more like it.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm sure there'll be plenty of explanations out there about how Trump wins with 41 to 43% of the vote. And it's possible, but it's not likely.
Yeah.
And he does motivate people to vote. As strongly disapprove is 42, as strongly approve is 32. He's losing this argument. Those are losing numbers.
Well, yes, that's true. Just to jump off of the polls for just a second, and feel free to go right back to it. But another of your points, I just happened to see go by on Twitter, and I'm sure that there are people convinced of this, but I think you've made an important counter. Jonathan Weissman, where is he now? I don't even remember. He's a journalist, and let me open up his...
I think he's a New York Times Washington bureau chief or something like that.
Yes, okay. So he's tweeting, and I don't follow him, so it's someone else retweeting him into the stream here. Trump has completely succeeded in drawing attention away from the conditions at detention centers, the concentration camps as you know them, on the border and elsewhere. On Saturday, the nation's media were aghast at the images that came out of Pence's visit. One presidential tweet storm later, and we have completely changed the subject. And apparently it's in my tweet stream because either someone believes it or later on tweeted, I'm only retweeting that to show you how stupid Jonathan Weissman is. I'm not sure what the
I retweeted it with a comment that said racism is racism. Don't overthink this. Now, and moving from baby jails to out flat racism is the same issue, not different issues, and it doesn't help him.
All right. Well, I have to find that tweet and retweet that one because it wasn't yours I was reading, because then otherwise I would have said, look at what the smart thing that Craig said was. But I saw it with no comment from someone else. All right. Well, good. Thank you for taking care of that. I was going to say, we have to take a pause.
I can't go to bed. Somebody's wrong on
right. I can't do this show. Time out. I have to talk to Jonathan Weissman.
Anyway, there's the tweet, and right above it is the screen capture from the New York Times covering this stuff. So let's just go over some of the things here, because there is more in the Wall Street Journal poll I want to get to, which I think is fascinating. Okay. Right. And one of them, for example, of course, Trump's best numbers come from Republicans, 89% approval. Rural voters, 62%. Men is only at 53%. And ages 50 to 64, those who grew up in the Reagan era, 53%, and whites 52%. Suggesting, I haven't looked up the numbers yet. I suppose I could. I have the whole thing here. But the over 65s, who are the people that vote at higher numbers than anybody else in terms of a percentage. I'll have to look at that. The worst numbers are with Democrats, 7% approve. This must be panhandle Democrats. African Americans, 18%, Latinos, 29%, women, 38%, and voters age 18 to 34, 32%. And young voters tend to come out more than people give them credit for, particularly when it comes to presidential elections.
Yes, right. Okay. Well,
now, here's another one. This is from deep inside the Wall Street Journal poll, NBC Wall Street Journal poll. Generally speaking, do you think of yourself as a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, or something else?
Yeah.
Idiot.
Oh, do I think of myself as that?
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
What do you think of yourself?
I don't know.
So, looking at registered voters, you'll see Gallup, for example, do party ID and find that I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it's something along the lines of Democrats self-ID'd as 26%, Republicans as 25 or 24%, and independents is in the mid-40s.
Yeah.
Right? And you look at that and say, where's the appeal of the Democratic Party if they're only a quarter of the population? But that's in general how it works. That's how it works in Connecticut as well.
Okay.
Quarter of the population is Democrat, a little bit less than that Republican, and half the population is independents.
Yes.
Or no affiliation, or NPA, no party affiliation. I guess that's how they do it in North Carolina and other places. But when you ask the question, generally speaking, how do you identify? Strong Democrat, not very strong Democrat, independent, lean Democrat. Add those up, you get 42%.
Oh.
Independent, lean Republican, not very strong Republican, you get 36%. And then strictly independent, it's about 12%. And that's more realistic in terms of the population that we're looking at. The strictly independent, self-described voter, that's 12% of the population. That's the high end of what I'm always telling you, 8 to 10% is persuadable.
Yes.
Okay. And 8 to 10%, plus or minus, is the difference between a big win and a big loss.
That is true.
So there are more Democrats or Democratic leaners than there are Republicans. And what Trump does with the baby jails and with the blatantly racist tweets is he loses independence. That's why this is a losing strategy. And trying to paint this as, oh, well, look at Trump. He's just only going to get stronger with his base. Who cares? His base can't win elections.
Well, yes.
Except in the Deep South.
We still have to sit here and wait for it. That's the hard part, I guess.
Yeah, 2018 we saw what happened.
And of course, right. Yeah. And of course,
2016 was unique. It isn't the pattern that we're going to follow from now on.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, every time I see one of these polls, I am reminded, like, okay, well, the national numbers, we need the state ones. And
we do. We need state ones. We need the Electoral College. But the state ones are reflecting the same thing.
Or we need to get rid of
Trump
the
isn't
Electoral
especially
College.
strong in Michigan or Pennsylvania or Wisconsin. It's closer in there, I think. None of this is going to be easy. But it's not like you look at these and say, oh, it's like Ohio. How are we going to win there? It's not what those numbers show. Even Florida, who I'm always skeptical about, with good reason, ever since 2000, even Florida is extremely close, as is Arizona, as is Texas.
Yes.
Now, you're not going to win Texas as a Democrat and lose Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. If we pick up Texas, that's landslide territory.
Yes. Well, then that would be terrific.
But if Texas and Arizona really are close, it's telling you everything about the rest of the country.
Yeah.
So, again, these polls aren't predictive.
No.
But there's every reason to be optimistic. Another weird thing about the poll is if you look at the internals about questions about, what does this tell you about the Republican Party, for example?
Yes.
Okay.
What?
Well, here's the question. Do you consider yourself to be more of a supporter of Donald Trump or more of a supporter of the Republican Party?
Neither.
That's it. Well, you. But, if you're a Republican, how are you going to answer that?
Honest. Good question.
And it's a very fluctuating answer.
Yeah.
January of 2019, 51% of the party were supporters of Donald Trump and 38% supporters of the Republican Party. Right? Okay. Then for the next couple of months, February, March, April, it was more even. In June, it was 52% supporter of Donald Trump, 38% supporter of the Republican Party. And now, today, this latest poll came out yesterday, 44% supporter of Donald Trump, 46% supporter of the Republican Party. I know he's a jerk. I'm just doing this because I'm a Republican.
Yeah.
Right? And the fluctuation, if it stayed at 52-38, you'd say, look, this is immutable. These folks cannot be swayed. They can be at the margins. You're not going to, in general, get Republicans to vote for Democrats.
No.
But with Trump in office, you'll get a proportion of them. That's where the suburbs come in. That's where the baby jail photos come in. That's where Mike Pence turning his back and saying, it smells great in here. That's where Trump's tweets really, really matter. And what he's trying to do, is pretty obvious. He's trying to squeeze every last vote out of that 37% base that he has. But in doing so, everything that he does to shore up support with that 37% that will presumably not desert him, but he needs more than that. He needs them to actually show up at the polls. Every vote he squeezes out of them is a vote he pushes away everybody else.
Well, I hope so. It's what the numbers say.
It's what the numbers say. So, that's why, I scratch my head every time I see this and say, oh, this is a really smart move by Trump. There's no smart move by Trump. He doesn't play three-dimensional chess. He can't play tic-tac-toe without cheating.
Sure. I never buy into that. I guess the only thing that keeps people thinking that that's possible
He's a racist. It's just that every once in a while you see it, and sometimes it's so blatant even the media has to recognize it.
I guess so. I guess
it's the same racist he always was. That hasn't changed.
What keeps people in fear about the base-only election is that it also seemed kind of stupid when Karl Rove was saying it on behalf of W, and then he was back. But it was a different guy.
Well,
different
he was
base.
saying the same thing when Obama won.
Yeah, so I guess that's true too, right? Yeah. Except he wasn't running the show, but who knows? Certainly everyone else thought so.
One of those elections was, I can't remember whether it was the first or the second. Mm-hmm. He was on Fox having a mental breakdown claiming that,
which one was
the numbers
that?
really weren't the numbers. What was it in Ohio? I don't believe them.
That's
you
true.
called it
I
for
do
Obama.
remember that
I don't
now.
believe it.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't believe it.
And somehow he's still
can't allow
on
myself.
television. This is weird. Normally that would disqualify you, but somehow it didn't for
Right,
him.
exactly. So, people are saying the same things. Newt Gingrich is tweeting that this is great for Trump because that if he's saying it, it means the opposite.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. He's a pretty good guy. That's true. Which election was that? What was it? He had the math, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was against Romney.
Yeah, maybe
2012. But I
remember it, so it
all
must
blurs
be
together.
So
it's Karl Rove being Karl Rove, and it doesn't make he's a genius.
Yeah. Although I do see a couple of the articles about Karl Rove and the math that I was able to Google up might suggest that it was 2008 and McCain. But why was he so excited about McCain? All right, I don't know. Okay, well, there's
one of those. Anyway,
got it.
What we're not talking about is we're not talking about arguments between Pelosi and the squad because Donald Trump is the great uniter. Once he opened his mouth, that was like, small change stuff.
Yes. Well, it's been a weekend, man. All right. Well, we do have our
we'll
first
go
break
back to
coming
where
up.
you came from.
Right,
Jersey.
Yeah.
What are you doing in Virginia?
I'll go back to where I was
here.
when I first heard the comment.
Me too,
it was
Corey.
Sunday.
Go back to Mississippi where you're from. Wait, he's not from Mississippi.
Yeah. It was a hell of a day, I must say, and I'm glad we've moved on from it. All right, we'll be back in about 2 minutes, regroup, and find our way forward from there. Lots still happening,
about Joe
still
Biden
developing
and
now. Oh, okay, excellent. Good teaser. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Networks Radio. And let's see, just before the break, Twitter lit itself on fire with a tweet from The Hill, which may or may not have anything to go on here. Breaking, Trump to end asylum protections for Central American migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. No one knows on what this is supposed to be based, or whether he tweeted something, or whether there's a real basis in law for being able to do something like that. Just a reminder, I guess for me, of the ICE raids that are definitely coming this week. No, next week. No, the week after that. Again, can't take that lightly. And it's the fact that there's no basis in law has not stopped Trump from threatening things anyway. And a lot of people will remind you also that part of the point is to paralyze certain communities with fear, such that they stay in their homes and won't say anything and won't show up for work or whatever else.
For a day or two.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Because it's a headline. Dara Lynn tweeted, hearing that the administration's about to announce, quote, interim final, end quote, regulation going into effect as soon as possible that would bar asylum to anybody who traveled through another country to reach the U.S., it faces pretty steep odds in court.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So once again, we're now, it's an acting interim final.
Right.
Right. So, I don't know.
By one of his acting interim people.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, between this and the various... Oh, yes, speaking of all of his acting people, I noticed that you made the very good point over the weekend as well, that for whatever reason, once again, sort of missing the point of everything, Chuck Todd thought that the real heart of the Alexander Acosta story going into the weekend was the number of vacancies that we now have in the federal government and in the cabinet. That
it's a story. It's a true story. But the bigger picture of and there's more to come with this because Southern District of New York is not done doing whatever they're doing. But the bigger story, of course, there is the pedophile island aspect of what Jeffrey Epstein was and continues to do in trying to tamper with witnesses, which is the latest time that his name came up. And, of course, the connections he has with various and sundry people, including Donald Trump. Yes. So Trump, may assume that every scandal is a distraction from the other scandal, but it all builds up, which is why he's particularly unpopular. Yes. Well, at the beginning of the pundit roundup today, I posted the latest numbers from 538. I mean, they're remarkably stable going back months, years. I mean, he's 53% disapproved, 42.4%, 52.6% disapproved, 42.4% approve. And those are incredibly stable numbers, and they have been for a year, and they will be for another year. And nothing he does helps him grow this particular number here. And so, to the Jonathan Weissmans of the world, if you're going to argue that banning asylum for people going through another country to get here, which is to say only Mexicans are allowed asylum but nobody from Central America, which will be challenged by the court. If you're going to make the argument that that's going to somehow distract from Mike Pence and the concentration camps, when in fact that is the heart of the story.
That one seems pretty easy to see, too. But
yeah, but I'm sure somebody will tweet it, or write a story about it, or how Trump is three-dimensional chess, with all of this because whatever stupid reason people will come up with. I mean, it's all part of the same story. And what's happening is that when you push it in media's face with images, Jacob Soboroff is a perfect example of this on MSNBC, or with racist tweets, it becomes very difficult to play neutral by coming up with euphemisms for lying or for racism. Tweet with racist overtone. An untrue tweet with racist overtone. He's a lying racist, okay? Just go ahead and do it. You can play the game of all the different euphemisms that you can come up with. Oliver Willis does that great on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eventually you'll run out. I don't know. You can try and make more, but...
colored with racist overtones.
Tinged is another good one.
Tinged, yeah.
Racist,
right.
Racially tinged. Racially tinged.
It's racist.
Yes.
CNN had a Chiron racist tweet the day it came out. That's the way you have to play it. And that's the way it is playing.
Yeah. Well,
so Jonathan Bernstein, points out here, President Trump's bigotry is part of a pattern. Don't forget, this is the guy who was the birther in the Central Park 5 people, so he gets no benefit of the doubt with anyone.
Right.
Except maybe Dean Beckett at the New York Times. Everybody else looks at this and says, come on, this is racist.
I need to see him on tape using the N-word.
And it still wouldn't,
Even then, I don't know, it could be a deep fake.
The president's latest remarks are perhaps a new low, but at this point, they shouldn't be surprising.
Okay.
Says Jonathan Bernstein, and that's the way, again, one should take it. So who made the great decision to send Pence to Texas, where he could stand there and claim everybody's just fine and it smells great?
Trump claims he did.
Trump said this was my idea because I read a phony story in the New York Times. That's Daniel Dale reporting. And I had people calling me up at the highest levels in Border Patrol and ICE almost crying about the phony story, he says. And George Conway tweets, after seeing the photographs and the videos and reading the press reports last night, you really had to wonder what idiot thought it would be a good idea to send Vice President McAllen. And it turns out it's idiot one.
I guess so. Maybe. I can't tell whether I believe him about it being his idea, but it is dumb enough to be his idea.
Well, he says it's his idea, and presidential tweets are policy, so it was his idea.
I guess so. I mean, that's the way it is for all presidents at some level, minus all the idiocy of it. They get to claim credit for everything that happens in their administration.
Peter Wade has a story in Rolling Stone. Pence detention center visit exposes depths of Trump administration's cruelty. I was not surprised by what I saw. The vice president said, you know what? We weren't surprised by what we saw out of you and
Right.
what was there. So that's all true.
I will say about that picture, it was a very interesting thing watching the initial reaction among, liberal communities. It was very weird. And most people said, look, he doesn't even care. The look on his face tells you that, this is what he came to see. But I did see a significant number of people saying, look, he's horrified and can't hide it. And look at Lindsey Graham. He's got his arms wrapped around himself. He's like he's hugging himself because of the horrors. I'm like, to me, it looks like he's got his arms folded in smug satisfaction at what he's seeing. But I think by the end of the weekend, it shook out the other way there. And everybody kind of said, yeah, this is what they came to see and what they came to show America. This is what we're doing to people, and we mean it.
They did want to show America because what they did is they tried to have a photo op, not of the kids, but of male adults in cages. Hopefully, when they went down there for them, what they were hoping is they'd look all scary and have tattoos and maybe have toothpicks, in their teeth and
the criminal indicator.
Brass knuckles and eye patches and a parrot on their shoulder.
Eye patches are
they wanted that
now.
visual.
Yes,
and he went there for like 30 seconds, got the visual, turned around and left. We've seen that before. Didn't he do that at one of the football games?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I need a photo of me storming out.
Yeah, I want to be there for 8 seconds so you can have a photo of me storming out.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's what they did. It was pretty blatant. And it was pretty obvious it didn't work because he got just terrible, terrible press about it over the weekend. In fact, my favorite was from The Onion.
Aww.
The headline there is, Mike Pence assures detained children they'll have safe sanitary conditions in heaven.
He believes that, too.
Well, I don't know what he believes.
I mean, they won't.
It's hard to know
he
what
will. But whoever goes to heaven like me, will have safe sanitary conditions. The rest of you, of course, doomed to hell. But if you manage to make it, I guess. Okay.
Anyway, hey, speaking about polls, let's talk about a phony poll.
All right.
This
Really?
is kind of interesting. So,
That's a good idea.
You've already forgotten. America has already forgotten.
What? I don't even
But
remember.
part of the reason Trump was tweeting racist tweets is he was trying to fan the flames of an argument between Nancy Pelosi and Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and her
Yes, this I do remember.
squad, right?
Right?
So Axios, of course, gets this leaked poll from somebody, and they won't say where. Top Democrats are circulating a poll showing that one of the House's most progressive members, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has become a definitional face for the party with a crucial group of swing voters.
Okay.
This is actually funny. You have to take this with a grain of salt. None of this is true. This is a truth sandwich. I'm going to tell you that what I'm about to read you is not true.
All right.
Then I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to explain to you why it's not true.
How is that a truth sandwich? Where's the truth?
Well, because the truth is on the outside, and this poll's in the middle.
Well, that's bread. But all right.
Okay. So yeah, the truth
I'll
is the
go
bread,
with it.
and the phony poll is the peanut butter.
Crab
You got that?
sandwich and good bread.
You can call it that.
All right.
Why it matters.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
It's a wish sandwich, right? Out of the Blues Brothers. Because I wish there was some meat between these two pieces of bread. Why it matters. These Democrats are sounding the alarm that swing voters know and dislike socialism, warning it could cost them the House and the presidency, and the poll is making the rounds. If all voters hear about is AOC, it could put the House majority at risk, said a top Democrat who's involved in 2020 congressional races. I wonder,
What?
is this like Dan Lipinski? She's getting all the news and defining everybody else's race. The poll taken in May, before Pelosi's latest run-in with AOC, included 1,003 likely general election voters who are white and have 2 years or less of college education.
Everybody?
No, just them.
Okay. I mean, but
These are the white
everybody-
non-college
that's
voters
who they asked?
embraced Donald Trump in 2016.
All
We
right.
don't know. See, that's the problem. We don't know what else they asked and what they're leaving out. It's like when a campaign poll is leaked. And this is why you have to read these stories with like, okay, this is meaningless. And again,
right.
we'll explain.
I'll
These
let
are the
you go.
white non-college voters who embraced Donald Trump in 2016 but are needed by Democrats in swing House districts. So in other words, if you go ask Trump voters,
Yeah.
white non-college Trump voters, what they think of socialism and AOC, guess what they're going to tell you?
Bad stuff.
Bad stuff.
Yeah.
She was recognized by 74% of voters. And hopefully
Really?
Armando will come in, because some of the squad were actually there at Edwards Nation, and I think he was there and can tell us about it. But
yes.
it's been a bit. That's wonderful.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
okay.
Omar of Minnesota was recognized by 53% of the voters. So Ocasio-Cortez is by far the most visible.
Yeah.
And socialism was viewed favorably by 18% of the voters and unfavorably by 69% in this small subsegment of Trump voters.
Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's it. That's all that's reported.
So,
And therefore,
what
this
is
is evidence somehow, right, that
no. But yeah, go ahead.
of something.
Yeah.
Something means something, and therefore, whatever. Of course, again, all of this has been obscured by Trump's racist tweets. But Ryan Grimm points out in response to this, I asked top Democratic pollster Celinda Lake of Lake Research what she made of the results of the poll of white non-college voters that Axios published. And here are her points. Number one, it shouldn't have been reported on. It violates all the standards for publication.
Oh.
The AAPAOR, that's the Professional Organization of Pollsters, the AP, CNN guidelines, they all require, rightly so, release of all findings, release of who did the poll, who paid for it, release of the question wording. None of that is in there. Just the results. Cherry-pick results, I might point out. The questions were unbelievably biased, and the cherry-picking results even more so. We know from other polling, half of Americans don't know what socialism is. What would the results have been if you asked the question with just standard wording? Do you have a favorable, unfavorable, or don't you know?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to do you like it or do you not like it?
Oh,
more to the
all
point, 22% isn't bad. That's the number that Ocasio-Cortez got. That's not bad among white, not college people. We're only going to get 25 to 35% max anyway.
Okay, that's a good point.
What were the numbers among millennials and people of color?
Yeah, well,
They don't
know,
report this.
Right.
Right? And noticeably, there's no releasing of college without debt, Green New Deal, Medicare for all. That's because 55 to 65% of the public support those policies. It'd be very interesting, even more interesting than what they think of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It'd be much more interesting to ask that question.
Yes.
Of those particular groups of voters.
Well, it would once you realize that first point, which is a very good one. They almost got 20% approval of socialism from Trump voters.
Exactly.
That is amazing. And it's easy to ignore that when you have that very big number on the other side.
Right. And by the way, I have a piece from April of 2019 pointing out another thing. Yeah. And that is, Ryan Grimm throws this in as an afterthought, but it's kind of interesting. Celinda Lake is banned by a lot of establishment Democrats.
Oh, banned by a lot of them. Well, how?
You may remember earlier in the year.
Yeah.
That the DCCC and I don't know if the Senate side did it.
Okay, I think I know what you're
said
going here.
We will not
right.
support any pollster who is going to be polling for an insurgent candidate.
Yeah, any consultant of any kind.
We have any consultant, anybody who is supporting insurgents over our incumbents is going to be blacklisted.
Yeah, I do recall that they said that, and I didn't realize.
And she was one of them.
Okay, well, that's a pretty major thing.
I think, who is it? Somebody in Mississippi, Benny Thompson?
Yeah.
She was supporting somebody running against him back in 2016, and they're still mad about it.
Ah. All right. Well, but then they're making it retroactive as well. I mean, she may also still be.
Ryan Grimm says, here's the thing you know if you read my book. Emily's List tells candidates if they want the group's endorsement, they have to fire Lake.
That is pretty amazing because Lake, she's a woman.
She's good.
Yeah, and she's good, and she's a woman.
So
I mean, she's totally mainstream. That's 100%.
She's a mainstream pollster.
Absolutely.
She's very competent. She's very good.
Long time. I mean, decades in this business. And
right.
Okay. I didn't realize that she had been caught up in that, which is pretty amazing.
But my point is, I don't think she has a particular establishment axe to grind.
No, she's made a ton of money from them.
And I think she's pretty objective in terms of pollstering. And I think the point she makes about that Axios poll is all true. It's ridiculous that they put that story out. It means nothing.
I am amazed.
And there's my truth sandwich. There's my wish sandwich for you.
Yeah, I'm amazed that they followed through on it. I guess if you had asked me with this blacklisting thing,
I
whether
mean, the whole story is bizarre. The
if-
fact that she's blacklisted,
Yeah.
that's in and of itself a bizarre story. But,
Yes.
she is as reasonable an established figure as it
right.
comes.
I think
And she's a good pollster, and her analysis is spot on. That's the point.
so much so that I thought that they would simply like waive her past. Like if it turned out that she had a client, that they would just give her an exemption
Yeah,
because they're just
We're banning
they
Stan
cheat
Greenberg.
like that all the time. Yeah, right, exactly. That's basically what it comes down to. And I mean, I guess he's not a consultant,
James
but I wouldn't
Carville
be
is
surprised
no longer
if
allowed to speak on
yeah, right. Or if Bill
what are you
Clinton
talking
were to back an insurgent-ish candidate in New York or something, would they say, "Oh, no more talking about Bill Clinton"? Well, he wouldn't be consulting per se, but they wouldn't ban him. I thought they would waive her through.
But
Yeah.
but the point really is about
Okay.
how you can take a lousy poll and like Axios try to make clickbait out of it.
Sure, fine.
And teach
Focus
you
on the
nothing.
point.
And make it sound like the world better go for Joe Biden because, oh my God, look at all these other people. None of which
Was
is
that
true.
supposed to be the idea? Because that was lost as well.
Well, it's all part of the background.
I guess so. Well, that's pretty dumb and bad for many reasons. All right.
It is. And so I want to follow up the Wall Street Journal NBC poll with an observation by Harry Enton, forecaster Enton, who's was at 538 and now he's back at CNN. And all I got to do is find his tweet. It's somewhere, including NBC Wall Street Journal poll.
Yes.
Here's what 30-plus polls since the beginning of the year, all of which polled all matchups, have found on average. Biden 49, Trump 41. Sanders 47, Trump 42.
All right.
Warren 44, Trump 43. Harris 44, Trump 43. Some of this, especially Harris, is name ID, with or without anything else regarding Harris. And then he adds, I do think being seen as a very liberal candidate would hurt the Democratic nominee, but not by a lot. Maybe 3 points.
Yeah.
Now, it could make a difference in a close election, but it's not a huge penalty. I mean, if you're winning by 6 points, or 8 points, or 9 points, it's not going to hurt Joe Biden to be associated with the party of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'm just trying to make a point here, not trying to endorse Biden or his point of view. But half of the Democratic Party is moderate to conservative, so attempts to paint the entire party as socialist fall flat for a number of reasons. One is that half the population, as Ryan Grimm points out, doesn't even know what socialist means. Right. And those that do kind of like it.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's the same smear that was used against Medicare back in the day,
right.
in the 60s when it first came around, and Social Security before that. And, it's got a limited half-life here.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty...
So it's all part of the same thing. And when people plant stories like that, they're trying to get you, without directly saying so, that really what we're saying is that the party's going too far left. And we third-wave people want you to be aware that, if you take this approach, it's not good. And, it's all nonsense.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty egregious, this version of it. So Axios went in for that, eh?
Yeah, Axios and Politico are the two clickbait people that, love to get insider information and make themselves look like they're really smart when, in fact, they're really not.
Okay. Well, that's really amazing, including the side story about Celinda Lake, to say the least. All right.
Well, we try to keep your readers interested.
Well, you did, and you interested Armando as well. And I haven't seen him say anywhere that you were wrong.
Well,
yet.
That's because it's early.
Yeah. Well,
but I do hope he'll come on and tell us about his experiences.
Yeah. Well, okay. Doors open for that. Well, and I think now if he calls, Skype has finally updated its software where I can add him. I think we did that with Joan the other day. So
is he? Well, it's 9:51. Do you want to save it for after the hour? His segment there, or is he available now?
I don't know. Well, he's probably available now. Let's see if we can get him to. He's typing that. I don't know. Maybe he hears us. Maybe he doesn't. Let me see if we can't get him to do it. But all right, let's see. I think I can get him in before the hour, and then that makes for a fun segue as well. Oh, he says, here you are. You're wrong about Biden. So
Oh, yeah.
at
Well,
least we have that.
Say that.
All right.
It's got to be something.
All right. Let's see if we
But
can
if
get him
that's
to
all
try
there is,
calling.
let me just give you Joe Biden's health care
Here we
point,
go.
because I think it's an important one.
Oh, no.
And
See?
let Armando come in after the break.
Okay. Now it says here he's calling and it's
Oh, good.
going,
Let him call. Let me talk about this while he's calling.
It's defaulted to the old stuff and tells me that answering this call will place my current call on hold. So I don't know.
Yeah,
why
that's
that
what I get
happened.
too. So I don't know what that means.
Okay. So I will.
Do I
let me
say
try
yes
calling
or do
him.
I say no?
I'll try calling him and then.
Yeah, try calling him.
Yeah. Let me try calling you. Okay. All right. Well, go ahead.
So Joe Biden rolls out a health care plan.
All right, and we'll do the ringy dingies while you're telling us about the health care.
Sam Baker's covering this in Axios. Sam Baker's a very good health reporter. And he says the cornerstone of Biden's proposal is a new public insurance option, which would compete alongside private insurance. The public plan would be available to everybody, even people who get the coverage from an employer. So you have a public option.
Public option, okay.
Okay, making the ACA's premium subsidies more generous and more widely available. But if you step back and look at the big picture, Biden's going to run on the Affordable Care Act is good. It's not great. It didn't do everything. We have to build on it. Don't jettison it for other plans. Read that as Medicare for all.
Okay.
And it's an interesting point and an interesting contrast that will actually give voters a choice about what they want.
All right. I think I do have Armando on the line at the moment.
Armando, you there?
Yeah, I am.
All right.
Yay.
So if I say
So
he's not there,
now you have
I'm
your
wrong.
contrast and you get to vote on what you want. Do you want to leave the Affordable Care Act in place?
Yes.
Now, it's not like everybody else is saying get rid of it. A lot of folks are actually kind of in transition mode. But politically, it's a smart play to say, this is my marker. This is what distinguishes me from all those people who raised their hand at the first debate.
No, it's a great spot for Biden. It's an obvious one to me. He gets to actually be for one of the Medicare for all optional. That is, whoever wants it can buy it. That'll be his public option.
Yep.
And he gets to defend Obama, which is the place he needs to be. Instead of having Obama there defending him, his sweet spot is him defending Obama.
Yeah, sweet spot is exactly the word I was going to use, or phrase, because this is exactly where he needs to be. Now, whether he can sustain it or not putting his foot in his mouth in an hour, that's a different story.
Well, that's my disagreement with you about Biden.
Oh.
The idea of Biden is very powerful in this election. The reality of Biden, I believe, is not, simply because
Right, but the reality of Biden is that he hasn't faded like everybody predicted he would. Now, maybe that's coming. There's another debate coming up.
anytime he's in the news, he fades a little bit.
Hmm.
I'm just telling. Look,
And the polls say no. The polls are pretty flat line about that. He had his
Polls-
moment. He dropped,
Are they?
and then he's very consistent with where he is right now.
no, he's down. He's down at least 5 points from his highs.
Yeah, he was,
least.
but it's not a continuing slope. What happened is he went down, and then he's got a new baseline, and he's
So he
stuck to that baseline.
plateaus. Then he has another bad moment. He plateaus a little lower. And
Well, that's
I
your
think-
prediction as to what hasn't happened yet.
Well, okay.
That's true.
Listen,
I'm just saying.
There's also
there
a
are
big-
people that said, "Oh my gosh, after that debate, he's going to implode." He hasn't.
he went down.
He went down, but he didn't implode, and he's still leading.
Well, I
everybody
mean, to
else.
go to of course, it doesn't all happen in one day. But I'll put it this way: if he has another bad debate, then he's done.
Yes, and that'll be July 30th.
I don't
So,
think he will have
There's a
another
lot
bad
more.
debate.
There's
but
a
I think
lot more writing on the 30th debate for him, I think, than anybody else.
than anybody else. Though I
Okay.
think my candidate Kamala also has a lot writing on it. She has to back it up. She can't have a bad performance. She has to have some moments.
Yeah, and that inconsistency from the California watchers is something that they say she's done before. That's been out there, she's done great, then inconsistent, then out there, done great, then inconsistent.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it may or may not matter, because if Biden drops, somebody's got to pick up his votes, and she's in a position to
she's
do it.
got, but to be well placed to be that person, she has to have a good. She doesn't have to have the same type of performance, because that was a very good performance, but she has to have a good performance. I do think, and I hate to be, because I think it's gotten later than people think. I was one who I think said, maybe on your show, David, that I thought Beto might have a moment in Iowa, which I think would get him going. But I think
Now you're
don't
Pete,
think
Mike.
it's gonna
Beto
happen.
ain't. It's not going to happen for Beto. He's done. And I'm pretty bearish on Sanders. I think Buttigieg has maybe the only chance of the non-big three, which is Warren, Harris, and Biden. Buttigieg I think, is the only one outside of that who has a chance at this point.
I guess my thought process on that is who's going to pick up non-white votes down the line, which you're going to need after you get out of Iowa and New Hampshire. And Buttigieg hasn't shown much ability there. So I do think in some respects, because I think Warren can, believe it or not. I think the effort she puts into it is noticed, and while she hasn't moved a lot of people that way. And
maybe she's got a plan for that.
Bernie's going to get 10% of the black vote, but that's all he's going to get. Look, I mean, it's just 2016 all over again, but without the same dynamic. And I thought once you saw the team he put together, you kind of knew what he was going to run. And I don't think that's a winning formula.
So I'm going to leave you with Simon Rosenberg's comment about Biden, where he says, so core to the moment is Biden's question. Do we want more years of upheaval after Trump's historical extremism? And Rosenberg writes, in my humble opinion, for most Democrats, the answer is no. That's an underlying appeal that Biden has that has nothing to do with Biden, that he also can
and it gets him 30%.
It does. Okay. That's what's keeping him afloat.
It gets him 30%. It doesn't get him 50%. I think one of the big differences I would argue with you and everybody about Biden is think of the similarly placed candidates in other elections. We're old, Greg, so we'll remember Walter Mondale in '84 would be comparable. There's the break. At any rate, he's much slower than people who he was you could comp to.
He's extremely vulnerable. I'm just making the point right now as a snapshot. He's doing better than many of his critics thought he would at this particular point in time after that debate.
All right. Then we got until the 31st to figure this one out. And then a few days after. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show. You're on Netroots Radio. Greg still here for just a minute anyway, and Armando's still with us. Let's wrap things up so that you can go eat breakfast as well.
Greg, if I can, I want to talk about I was at Netroots on Saturday. That was the Squad Day, the President Day, and I want to touch on something Greg was talking about, which I know that poll you mentioned, which is obviously a hit poll. It could have been third way, could have been who knows. But the idea of it, to me, is ludicrous in this sense. And I think Greg agrees with me with this. And if he doesn't, he's wrong. There's not going to be a single vote to 2020 that's going to be based on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
True.
Right.
We have fun on Twitter, and they did stories, and Fox talks about her a lot, but when people go to the voting booth in November 2020, they're not going to be thinking at all about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's not running for president, is she?
No, it's Nancy Pelosi San Francisco values, and you know what? That didn't work either.
That didn't work with the Speaker of the House. How's it going to work with some backbencher freshman congresswoman? Not.
There will be people who are willing to cite her, but they were going to vote, like Trump voters. Well, and we got to stop this, Alexandria. They'll say it to the press, but that's not what they were doing.
Right. I'd like to vote for you, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in your party, so I can't,
It's not. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And political reporters also know this. This is inside baseball, House of Representatives, knife fighting.
Well, Dave Weigel had a wonderful tweet about that. He said, when you look at 2018, the Democratic generic ballot was +9 for D's when they took the House. And right now, with all of this contretemps and all this discussion about socialism and everything else, it's 8.8. It has no effect on voters.
It has none. And, the argument for Biden, to go back to your other point, is one that I think Biden does understand what the election is going to be about. It's going to be about Trump. Trump, yes or no?
Yeah.
And Joe Biden is an acceptable alternative to most of the American public as on that referendum. So it's not...
That's his bumper sticker. Forgive me, I'm running against Trump. That's his campaign right there.
And it works. as long as he accepts that that's what his campaign is. But Joe Biden's problem is that just like he liked telling that story about segregationists and working together and blah, 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 he causes his own problems. Joe Biden should have run Herbert Hoover's porch campaign, and that's what they told him to do. That's why he's not available to the press much. That's why he doesn't do many events. And that's what they do. I'd hide him right to the end as much as possible. And I say this not to denigrate the people that are for Biden, but they must know that he's the problem with the campaign. It's not the strategy. It's not the positioning. I mean, the ACA thing is smart. He'll be smart and reasonable on everything. But Joe Biden likes to talk about Joe Biden. And Joe Biden needs to stop talking about Joe Biden. If Joe Biden
so
stops
does Bob
talking
Dole,
about Joe Biden,
for that matter.
he'll be fine.
All right,
I mean, that's my view.
And
full disclosure, I've despised Joe Biden for 30 years.
Oh.
So,
I was going to say.
That's pretty full.
When you don't like him, then you listen to him and everything's about him. But, of course, that's true about every candidate. Just, how well do you hide it? You can't not be that way. You got to do that in order to run for president. You got to.
No, Greg, he doesn't need to introduce himself to anybody. In fact,
the stuff he's doing wrong. There's no question about it.
Why would you bring up working with segregationists?
Because you mistakenly are trying to make the point that we need to go back to an era where we could talk to each other.
Because Joe Biden, could talk to segregationists.
Yeah, exactly.
And that wasn't his. I mean, it ended up being the point that we took away from it because it's an
I
important
drank
one,
with
but
him
that wasn't what he was
at the end of the day.
I love
like
segregation.
O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. That was his point, and it wasn't a good point, and he didn't make it well.
Joe Biden is a weak man intellectually, and I think he's got a weak character, too. I don't think he'll be a good president, but obviously he'll be better than Trump. So if he's the nominee, it's a no-brainer. But he's the guy that can blow this election. For Joe Biden's biggest problem is Joe Biden, and whether he wins the nomination or wins the election, it'll be in spite of Joe Biden.
Yeah, that may be. But it's one of those times where there are bigger things in play, bigger than any candidate. I mean, really, the electorate has to step back and decide, are you going to accept that pursuit of power is acceptable no matter what you do? There's nothing that's too far in doing that. That's the other side. And Biden is there are limits and there are norms, and he represents that without doing a thing. And the other part of it is that, and this is going to be definitely true in the primary and partly in the general election, do you want big change in things like healthcare? Warren represents big change. Or do you want incremental improvements and at least, holding the line and preventing and undoing a lot of the stuff that's been chipped away at? And that's what Biden represents. And people are going to have that choice. And I'm not telling you what your choice should be. I'm just saying people are going to have that choice. It's going to be stark.
Well, it's going to be a wild card in that status quo argument for health care and Affordable Care Act. And that's this crazy case in the Fifth Circuit.
Yep. That could upend all of this.
Yeah.
At least the narrative of it, because let's say the Fifth Circuit does it and strikes down the Affordable Care Act, even if they stay the decision, it's going to, be an issue, and maybe Biden can swing it powerfully his way. But it actually highlights the biggest problem all these healthcare proposals have. And Warren, this is one takeaway. Warren brought the House down. People loved her. I didn't like one really important aspect of what she said.
Oh.
You guys know how I feel about what happened in the Supreme Court and how the Supreme Court is the issue that's going to be paramount to everything these people say they're for. Medicare for all will be struck down as unconstitutional by this Supreme Court if it ever got passed and implemented. And let me tell you why. And Dave Weigel was saying, all the attacks have been on the exchanges. Well, first of all, that was just factually wrong, as anybody who studied the issues knows. In the first case, the Medicaid expansion was struck down as being mandatory to states. and the so-called compromise decision that stupid Kagan and Breyer exchanged in order to save the mandate. And they'll find a way. And there's actually a very easy way on Medicare for All that eliminates private insurance. And I'm just surprised people don't talk about it. If you're going to eliminate private insurance companies are going to say government is taking assets from me, my business, so I need to be justly compensated.
So I'm recently 65, and I am now on Medicare.
Right.
And there's Medicare supplemental, and
Sure.
it is private insurance.
No,
and the
I
point
agree.
I'm making is that Medicare, if you're going to have Medicare for all, Medicare includes private insurance. So the
Right.
idea that Medicare gets rid of private insurance is strange to me because I don't get it.
No, it doesn't. But
It doesn't.
The A plan, of course, is, I believe, public insurance. And the idea, I thought, was everybody's going to get. Well, the thing is, they're not really doing Medicare because, as I understand, let's say Bernie's proposal, and perhaps Elizabeth Warren's, they're actually revamping Medicare itself and eliminating deductibles and things that Medicare doesn't do now. I mean, the cost is pretty enormous.
The fact of the matter is, and the point I'm trying to make here is that whatever they say now, you have to do stuff to get to where you want. And in the process of doing that, that's where the sausage is made. And what we see at the end of that is nothing like what people are talking about now.
Look,
it won't be. It can't be. It's got to get through Congress.
It pains me to tell you this, but Joe Biden has it right.
He does. That's why I thought it was a very, very good
that,
position for him.
It's the one that works. It's the one that's popular. Add the public option through Medicare or Medicaid or whatever you're going to call it, and let everybody have that option. Medicare available for all. That way, you don't have to have this. You eliminate a legal impediment that I think the Supreme Court would absolutely jump on.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, just as a political problem, you can say everybody can keep their insurance if they like it, or they can have Medicare. And I don't think that alters the financial viability of the proposal. And it allows choice, and people love the word choice. And it's Joe Biden's got the right spot. I mean that, and I assume. Look, I mean Harris has been absolutely mud on the healthcare issue.
Yeah, that's been my criticism of her from the last debate. I just don't think that was a good moment for her.
It isn't, but yet I think there's a method to her madness. Believe it or not, I remind people that Obama was pretty muddy on some issues, and the reason is you get to be all things to all people.
Yeah, and then at the end you get to steal your opponent's best ideas. I mean, that's fine, and we've said that for a long time, and I don't hold that against her. I'm just saying that's the way it came across.
Oh, and you're right. She needs to be better at it. Really, Obama was really good at being all things to all people in 2008, and she should study some of his tapes.
Now, this is for the wonks here. I think there's one important point about Biden's proposal that Sam Baker brings up, which may or may not get any play, and again, which may not survive the primary and actually people picking these things apart. Baker writes, one potential controversy is that Biden's new public option would automatically take the place of Medicaid expansion in any state that hasn't expanded. So for those states that have rejected Medicaid expansion, you get the public option.
Well, it should be. Why isn't it nationwide? I mean, that sounds positive, but.
Well, the problem is non-expansion states get a better deal than those that participated in the expansion. So you get rewarded for being digging your heels in.
Oh, well, then that needs to be fixed.
So that needs to be adjusted.
How does that fare? And how does that fare in the courts as a
right? You're right.
mandate?
There could be some states' rights issues that raises too. That's a good point.
So just keep that in the back of your mind. It's not the major thing, and it may disappear, and he may pretend he never said it. Those things happen. But as written,
welcome to politics.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
But as
good
written,
start.
That is something that one should keep an eye on. Even though I think it is a sweet spot for him, but that may be,
I'm surprised they made that mistake. It's interesting.
That may be the hole in the Death Star.
Yeah, no, I assume they'll fix that.
Yep. Anyway, these things are to be fixed, and it's good to have this debate, and I think it's important that people do focus on what do you really want here. getting rid of the Affordable Care Act may sound good on paper when, what is it, the Fifth Circuit?
Yeah.
The Short Circuit winds up getting rid of it. You'll find that people are not so happy about that.
No, exactly. And I think if Biden's smart, he can play that into something. But honestly, I think
look what
a
they've
little more
done,
radical
and
about
that's
the
why
court.
you have to vote for a Democrat. I mean, that's basically going to be everybody's pitch.
Yeah,
but it's harder to do that when you said I wanted to get rid of it anyway.
Yeah, I guess so. But I still think the missing piece in this election so far in this primary, and I'll go to my Netroots moment where Elizabeth Warren was extremely timid about dealing with the Supreme Court.
Let me guess. She doesn't want to. She doesn't want to add, or at least
she says she doesn't want to do anything that'll further politicize the court. She said, I was going to throw something at her.
Right.
But
I really want to go out of my way not to politicize politics. I think there's too much politics in the political system right now.
Well, there's still this myth that the Supreme Court isn't a political institution.
Yeah.
When it so obviously is. As Martin Beutler says, whatever challenge is brought against Medicare for All, if it ever got to the court, there's already 4 votes against it, no matter what.
Yeah.
There's already 4, so then it's, will Roberts strike it down? And he will. You give him some half-baked argument, he's already done it, basically. I mean, he's actually tied himself into knots here. And the problem with signing on to the nonsense that Roberts wrote in 2012 is, they zeroed out the mandate. So is it unconstitutional now? There is no mandate, and and they said it was not severable in 2012, but it clearly was severable. It's been proven to be severable because we don't have a mandate anymore, and it's still going, right? So I just wish people grappled with the fact that the biggest limitation on all your dreams and ambitions is what the Supreme Court will do with them.
That is true, and deserves to be addressed, and might be. I wonder if that changes before July 30th, if he thinks that question comes up again.
Well, in general, I mean, for
Probably
our voters, we have to pay more attention to census issues and, the years in which those things matter in terms of reapportionment. And we have to pay more attention to the Supreme Court. We've done a really bad job on both of those things. And you could add local elections there, too, because state houses matter. So I'm going to leave you with that because I got to go. But there's a lot to say about that. I'm glad you were there. It's interesting Bernie wasn't there. The last one I went to, he got yelled at. So I don't know if that's why.
No,
it's not a good experience.
I think he thought, and I don't think he was wrong, that the reception Warren would get would overshadow his, and that would be his story. I'm not sure he made a bad political decision not going, to be honest with you.
No, it's not a bad political decision, but
it
does make the point that maybe people don't fully understand, and I think they should, is that Warren and Sanders are not interchangeable. They have different constituencies.
They are not.
A lot of good writing on that over the weekend.
Yes.
Was there? I didn't see it.
Yes.
But
there was. And I think it's an important point to make, and Armando makes it by just citing the reception at Netroots Nation, for example.
Yes,
not that NN is the be-all and end-all of everything, but they're different groups.
They're different groups. They really are.
It's a good point.
It
needed to be made.
So, Greg's still there?
Yeah. No.
So I think that's an essential point about the activist community that you saw. I think the squad had a great reception. Just to talk about that a little bit, people were not happy with Pelosi. I think, and I've tweeted it, so I'm not saying Pelosi's wrong in what she said. I've said this to people. My point is, in her role, she shouldn't be saying stuff like that. She shouldn't be fueling this fight. Look, Trump gives us a do-over, and I think
that's exactly right.
And Greg got that right, and E.J. Dion wrote a great column about it. It's can't we all get along? And we can't all get along. And in the primaries, people are going to fight. That's just the way primaries are. But I actually think in the institution that is the House of Representatives, when in your caucus, you have to play nice in the caucus. And the leader of the caucus has to lead by example on that. And I understand her frustration with the chief of staff for AOC, who frankly is not in a role he should be in. That's not a role he wants to play. He wants to be a bomb thrower, where you don't get to be the chief of staff and throw bombs at other members in your caucus.
You shouldn't get to stay being the chief of staff. We know people we like who have been in that role who haven't stayed there because it didn't work out.
Right, and the thing about that is it's not. I don't even think it's that great a job, to be honest with you. I can't imagine why you want to stay in it, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, you took this job. You got to do that job. If you want to do another job, if you want to run the pack, go run the pack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go do that.
Not the squad, the pack.
Right.
The pack, the PAC.
The PAC.
Right?
Yeah.
The PAC. He wants to run
Just want to make that clear to our
go run
listeners.
Justice Democrats.
Yeah.
That's fine. Then you can throw bombs at all of us, and no, I think then that's fair game. Maybe people will get mad at you, people will throw bombs back at you, and so on and so forth. But that's not. In that sense, AOC tries to have it both ways, and she has to pick.
Right.
All right, and she can have an independent arm that she can have some plausible deniability about, but when it's her chief of staff doing it, she has a problem. But then again, the Speaker of the House can't be doing it either.
Well,
and
so the Speaker of the House has to discipline the members, and you could argue whether this is an effective way or whether it should all be behind the scenes, which is difficult with social media. And so welcome to 2019.
Well, I think it's fair for her to say behind the scenes, listen, if you keep attacking other members and your chief of staff keeps attacking other members, I'm going to have to speak publicly about it. So you either control him or I will have to denounce him. Maybe that happened. And if it did,
I think that did happen. And then the other side tweets it out. And then here we are.
Well, then, Pelosi should actually get that story out that she gave them fair warning. And the reason she had to step in publicly was because they ignored what she asked them to do. And then I would probably be on Pelosi's side and said, listen,
well, that's effectively what she said. She said, I'm not going to tweet about what we talked about in the caucus. But, that's what happened.
No, but she did the Maureen Dowd interview before she did that caucus meeting.
Yeah, that's another story altogether. Although I don't trust a thing Maureen Dowd writes, so whatever.
You should know, hey, number one rule, you should never talk to Maureen Dowd, period.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I mean, that's a rookie mistake for the Speaker of the House, in my opinion. But I think, frankly, she's human. She's 79. She got tired of all the BS.
Yeah. It wasn't a perfect play, and she probably lost her temper, and that's not good. And, Donald Trump does indeed give us a do-over. And in the end, voters don't care, and I don't think it's all that important.
Oh, I'm totally in agreement with that. The only thing that the House could have done that really mattered for 2020 was open an impeachment inquiry, and that's not going to happen. So I actually think the House in toto is irrelevant now. I think the presidential is everything in terms of how this goes. So I don't think anything that happens in the House in, this food fight or more messaging bills or whatever the heck happens, no one cares. No one remembers.
Yeah, it's all part of the Democrats in disarray, TM.
Yeah. That doesn't even matter either. Does it?
To voters? No.
No.
To the outlets? Sure. That's what they live on.
I get that, and that's all fun and in games and gossip, but it doesn't have any electoral impact.
No, zero electoral impact. All right, I'll leave you with that. Any more tidbits from Netroots Nation? That would be good. Who was well received? Was the Ohio senator whose name I'm blanking?
Sherrod Brown.
Yeah, tell
Sherrod
us about
Brown.
how he was received.
Oh, he was great. And Sherrod Brown made a mistake in not running for president, in my view.
Don't try
Tell
to
us
change
that
that
while I
now.
sneak off.
Right. Sherrod Brown, there was a bunch of speeches. I'll tell
Thanks,
you
Greg.
first. I got there Saturday. I did not go to the Thursday, Friday thing of it, and I just couldn't get away. So I just drove down from New York on Saturday morning. I got there in time for the squad thing, and it wasn't the squad per se. I mean, it included Deb Howland and Ayanna Presley. And the squad, I believe, officially the squad is right. It's AOC, Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. I forget who the fourth member of the
Is
squad
Presley
is.
not the fourth? I don't know. I don't know if it's an official thing.
At any rate,
Yes.
AOC wasn't there.
Right.
Tlaib was, and Ilhan Omar was. Deb Howland, who is a Native American representative, I believe from New Mexico, and very good, and but fairly mainstream Democrat, not a bomb thrower. And Presley beat Mike Capuano in the primary last election and won the seat. And she's a fairly conventional. She said some things interestingly. I think she regretted after she said them. Dave Weigel sort of reported them out, and she said, "That's not what I said." It kind of was what she said, but that's fine. Whatever, that's politics. And it was a fairly negative crowd, and the moderator sort of egged on everybody a little bit, and took some jabs at Pelosi. So Pelosi was pretty unpopular at that particular session, and I don't think it had reflected on anything other than her decision to the Dowd thing really was what that was about. And it was fine. It was good. They talked about, it was very anti-Trump, which is, when E.J. Dion's piece today is, remember, we're fighting Trump. And if you went to that session, it was 97% attacking Trump, to be honest with you. And there was 3% about the infighting, but it was mostly, they were on message, all of them. I mean, in that sense, I thought Judd Legum had a good thread yesterday that, in this sense, Pelosi has missed, and it's done. I'm not arguing about this anymore. I really not. It's done. But just as a postmortem, if she had just let an impeachment inquiry be open, preliminary impeachment inquiry, put any type of words you want on it, everyone would have sort of been focused on Trump, and that would have been the focal point of what Congress is doing, the House is doing, and it would have been very unifying. I get that some of her problem solver types are in for it, but there's procedural ways of letting them separate themselves from it. I think, David, I defer to you, and I know you've said on Twitter that you think it requires a full House vote.
Well,
but
no. I mean, yeah, I've said that, but I guess in thinking about it as they press that question a little further, there's no regular order way towards an impeachment inquiry. I mean, they've never had a fight about whether there was an inquiry before. I don't think so. I don't know that there's a real. I mean, we've almost always eventually taken a unified approach toward impeachments. There just haven't been enough of them to establish a regular order. There's a preferred method of moving towards it, but yeah, the more I thought about it and the more we discussed it, I think that an impeachment inquiry is something that a chairperson could probably just independently convene.
And to add to that point, I mean, I think Nadler sort of said they're considering an impeachment inquiry again the other day, which, okay, whatever, Jerry. So, I mean, if the committee chairman says he's considering an impeachment inquiry, and suppose his committee votes it out, who's to say, who gets to go to court and say, no, it isn't an impeachment inquiry because the full House didn't vote on it? I mean, where's that in the Constitution?
That's ultimately the problem. I mean, it can't be an impeachment until the House votes on it, obviously, but an inquiry, I mean, you can't say that wasn't. I mean, I suppose before I go too far, I suppose you could have a motion on the House floor declaring that impeachment inquiry not an impeachment inquiry. I don't know what you would do with it, but I guess you could have it, and then there would be a fight about, was it one or not? If the full House says it wasn't one, then isn't it not one, no matter what the chairperson says? I don't know, but to what end you would have that fight, I have no idea, but you could have it.
I'm just saying, if you wanted it done, you could find a way.
Yes,
and you could cover the problem solver caucus and let them not have to vote on it. because I get the feeling is they don't want to be openly against an impeachment inquiry.
I guess not.
Because if they wanted this showboat that they were against it, I know we're going to a breakdown, but if they wanted a showboat that they were against it, you could give them that showboat.
Yeah.
They no.
Some of them would take it. Some number that would leave them at 218 in favor, I guess.
Right. So there's what is there? 20 free votes. Who needs them the most? Okay, here, you can be the no. But they don't want to be no against impeachment.
Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Armando still with us. Greg now off at brunch at this point, I guess. And thanks for giving us an extended segment today. I know that we got word that Brian Monroe is enjoying it, so you're an internationally acclaimed appearance here.
Hey, there you go.
So it's bipartisan if a Republican likes it. So it's international if a Canadian likes it.
Where's my Golden Globe?
All right, you get we should be nominated for that. They should include podcasts. Open it up, whoever you are. Okay, so let's see.
So I was going to talk about Netroots Nation a little bit. I've given you what I think is the headline on the squad thing, which was basically just all of us were anti-Trump for 97% of the time. They made a lot of points about the visits to the detention camps on the border. Bore witness and spoke about that in very strong moral terms. So that it was by and large, again, it was an anti-Pelosi crowd, but it wasn't really an anti-Pelosi hour. It was an anti-Trump hour 97% of the time.
So E.J. Dionne was not there and did not know that this was happening.
Right. Again, and this is...
Well, why would he be there? I mean, he's not there. He's not one of... Right, okay.
Yeah, he might come sometimes.
He wouldn't hide
he's a
from
good
it.
Guy, actually. I met
him.
He
may wish he was there.
Incredibly nice. And so I say nice things about him, by and large, except when I say not nice things about him.
No, I think we've heard over the past couple of years, I mean, his record's been pretty clear. I mean, he's been... he gets pretty uniform praise here. Greg usually reports on him pretty favorably. He's not as staid and timid as most Washington Post pundits by any means. But yeah, he may very well have wished he was there. Or now, there may be a follow-up piece and said, "Boy, I wrote this thing, and if I had just been in Philadelphia the other day, I would have said, oh,
you would have noticed that it was
there's one place that they were doing what I was saying they should be doing, and believe it or not, it's the dumb hippies."
Right, it was the dumb hippies doing that. I think if people actually look at what happened at that conference, they will have seen that it was very much about fighting Trump. And the presidential forums was the apex of that. Only 4 candidates came.
Yeah, that's we have 100.
Well, we had 20-something, and only 4 came, which I thought was interesting. It seems to me that if you were a lesser I mean, I understand why Biden didn't come. He would have had a bad reception. Mm-hmm. I understand. Again, I think...
And you said Bernie, too.
Bernie's political
same thing.
calculus.
Yeah, I saw that, too, and I thought good response. First, somebody was pointing... might have been Dave Weigel pointing out, I guess toward the end or immediately after Netroots Nation, Bernie was in Philly the
next day he was at a hospital.
At the hospital having but not it wasn't exactly a rally, but a protest of sorts. And I'm not familiar with the subject.
I don't know the issue itself, but I do know the hospital was right across the street from the convention center.
And Dave Weigel pointed that out, and then immediately I actually thought, I was like, oh, hey, that is interesting. And then immediately Bernie supporters pointing out, well, I mean, is that surprising? He thought that was the more important of the 2 things to do. They both happen to be in Philadelphia. And I said, oh, well, that's not actually a terrible answer. I mean, combined...
terrible answer, but it's kind of disingenuous.
Well, maybe, but combined with what you were saying...
He spent 3 days there protesting at
Yeah.
the hospital.
No,
You know
he
what I mean?
didn't. But he spent the day that, whatever day the thing was happening, he was there. But I thought in combination with what you said, it wasn't a terrible political decision by any means not to go.
That was
And
a good one.
also, he went and did something. It's not like he hates Philadelphia either, so that's not it, right? He went and he did the thing that he thought was important, and what he was saying was going to this Netroots Nation convention at this point, not really an important thing for me. That's not where my people were. Yeah, you might be right
it
about
was fine.
that. Yeah,
Again,
I'm not
I'm
going to
not
suffer.
critical of him not going.
Yeah, I don't think this is an opportunity to bash him. So
No,
we won't do it.
My thought was a little different. I think the people that needed some oxygen, I don't know what they did that day. Like they said, Beto did some picnic in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
And, I don't know. I just think Beto would have been better off. Oh, wow, the hospital's closing. I don't know why that popped up. Is that something you sent me?
No, but maybe Greg. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is. All right.
Wow, amazing. I don't know the particulars of that story, so I can't even comment on it.
We would if we were following him. All right. Yeah.
I thought people like Booker and Beto and pick your lower tier candidate, Tom Steyer.
Okay. Yeah.
Whoever should have come. This is going to get them more. There were more reporters there than there were at whatever they were doing on Saturday.
Yeah. Okay.
So it surprised me that some of the people, the lower tier people, didn't come.
Mm-hmm.
The four who came were it started, by the way, with some local politicians making some rousing speeches, got very well approved. The mayor of Philadelphia really focused on the fact that they will not cooperate with ICE, that Philadelphia remains a sanctuary city. Then one of Netroots' favorites, who's now a Philadelphia City Councilwoman, her name is Jim, and she's been a longtime activist in Philadelphia, ran for office, won her seat in City Council. She gave a barn burner of a speech that was well received. And then one of my favorites, Sherrod Brown, gave the speech that talked about electability and being a progressive. And, here's a guy who can point to the fact that he won Ohio by 7 points by running as a very progressive candidate.
Yes.
So he says this, all these things they're telling you are wrong. Look at me. True. I'm a progressive. I've always been a progressive. I voted against the Iraq War. I voted against NAFTA, which I disagree with him on, but fine. He voted against DOMA. He's taken issues. You remember when Joe Biden was all, very center-right? Sherrod Brown was left, center, left, and winning in Ohio at the same time. So he said, you don't have to do it the Biden way. That was implicit in his point I took. And it frankly tells me I do wish he would have run. It would have been a very important dynamic in the race, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And you got to respect his decision. Those are personal matters. To put yourself in a presidential campaign is a grind and a life sacrifice. And, he didn't feel ready for it.
Yeah.
So I respect that. Then
This
the first,
cycle, if you're late, you look like a joke at this point.
Right. Your first presidential candidate who appeared was actually Kristen Gillibrand, whose campaign hasn't been taking off.
Right.
But she was very good. She really connected with the audience. So you gave her a very good reception. There was a baby brought out for a question on immigration. Being the smart politician she is, she went and kissed the baby and held the baby. It was a great photo op for her. She helped herself, in my view, in a way that going to Iowa in some county that day wasn't going to get it done. So I think that she proved what it could be done. I thought the next candidate was Julian Castro, the former secretary of HUD, who had a good moment in the debate. He spoke well. He's very well informed. He had done his homework. I thought he lacked a little bit of a connection with the audience. He also had an opportunity to hold a baby, but declined.
Yeah, I heard about
which I think Marcos was urging him. By the way, Marcos was the moderator.
Yeah.
Along with Cheryl Conti. They had written their questions in advance, and they had a nice system where they also took some questions from activists and some questions that were submitted. And they were good questions all around, and the candidates were well prepared and knew what they wanted to say. In terms of performance, again, I thought Gillibrand was superior to Castro. I thought she connected better, and the audience received her better. The third candidate was Elizabeth Warren, who had the crowd in her hand the moment her name was mentioned. A rousing ovation. She was very personable. My takeaway again was the one thing that I'm obsessed with, which is the court, and I did not like her answer at all. I found it very timid. I don't like that answer, and I think she's going to have to wake up to the fact that's not going to work. But, these are politicians, and they're taking political positions, and maybe she'll be coaxed into, well, I have no choice. I have to be for this or something or other. We've talked about that earlier in the show, so this could be one of those moments. And the final candidate was Jay Inslee, who had the misfortune of following Elizabeth Warren. A lot of people left after that, myself included, not because I didn't want to hear Jay Inslee, but I'm a smoker and I wanted to smoke a cigarette. So I went outside to smoke. Everybody else, I think, just sort of left. I don't know how he did, but I'm sure he did well. And from the reports I saw, his climate talk was well received.
I'm sure
he's got a lot of traction on a climate forum that I think the DNC is going to bless, even though it might be too close to a debate than what they want. By the way, I hate that debate rule.
Which?
That the DNC is exclusive. I mean, I think it's fine to have their sponsored debates, but I don't think any candidate should have to respect their exclusivity to be included. I mean, the DNC doesn't. I mean, what's that even mean? How come I can't debate somebody somewhere else?
Oh, you mean as I heard at the last minute, like the format for the forum was one candidate at a time because the DNC forbids like direct debate format. Is that
yes,
what this is?
Okay. That's exactly
that is
right.
A weird
they say
thing.
They're the only ones that can hold debates.
I mean, what if it happens by accident?
Well, what happens if I fly out? What if Joe Biden
display
said, I don't care about your rules. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
He's not going to, obviously. But what if they did that? What if all 7 of the major candidates said, well, we don't care what you said?
Yeah. What if they did that and then they ignored the rule and then Celinda Lake said, what the hell?
Exactly.
Give me a waiver. That's a good point. I bet. Yeah. What would they do? They wouldn't ban him from. Or what's the punishment? I don't know.
Well,
what happens to you?
There, you don't get to go to the debate. The formal DNC debate.
Yeah, so try that, right?
I don't like that. I hate these exclusiveness things. I mean, it's fine. You have your rules, but, it's funny. If they're all the fights about the DNCs and rigging, the rule that the Sanders forces should have been arguing for is, no, you don't get to be exclusive. If people want to debate 100 times, they get to go debate 100 times.
They may never have known that was. Who knows whether they knew whether that was a rule? I never heard that one, but I don't follow DNC rules.
It was the rule in 2016. I do not believe it was a rule in 2008. That's why there were like 20 debates. I think one of the things that they complained about is why only 6 debates. I said, well, because they say they're going to hold them exclusively, and they keep people from having debates with other people. And it's like, well, see, if you really wanted to revamp the debate rules, that would have been the debate rule I would have eliminated.
Or something, modifying it. I would love to know. Well, yeah, that'd be probably do an hour on that and how to write that rule. I imagine at some level there was, well, if we just say, if we don't retain some sort of endorsement rights here, some exclusivity, then, what if Fox and Friends says, well, we invited all the Democratic candidates, but they were all too cowardly to show up, except for, 2 of them. Right.
Do that now.
Or 3 of them, or 4 of them.
House.
I guess, I don't know. I guess that there were, if you retain some ability to make a debate official or not, then you can wave that off and say, oh, no. Fox and Friends is just faking it. They were never going to have a debate.
They were going to do a debate on Fox until there was a big outcry.
Right. But I mean, if they had said they would do it on Fox, or for that matter, Fox and Friends, or for that matter on
Hannity.
Right.
Tucker Carlson.
Glenn Beck. Somebody. Right. Exactly. So if you do it that way, and then it's just a fake debate that you set up, and then accuse people of being too chicken to show up. Yeah. Right. So I guess there was probably that thought, but in the meantime, it ends up. Well, what about a waiver mechanism where you can say, at Netroots Nation, yeah, sure, you can do that. It was really good when they did it in 2007. Do it again.
I just whatever. I mean, it's not the most important thing in the world.
No.
There'll be plenty of debates. There's enough debates, but whatever. The event was incredibly well attended. I mean, from reports, this was the most attended Netroots of all time. And I can tell you that they were hanging off the rafters at the presidential forums. And
I can believe it.
I would say a lot of that was due to Warren, but there were just a lot of people there. I mean, it was close to 4,000, had to be.
Yeah, I have seen that number, 3,500, 4,000 tossed around. That's a lot. I think they just keep breaking records each year.
I guess so, because it was definitely the most people I've seen at a Netroots, and I've been to a few of them. You and I were at a few together, and they're still chugging along. And they actually, personal aside, they had a little montage of the whole genesis of Netroots Nation. And people who know, the original name of the conference was Yearly Coast.
Right.
And back then, I remember people emailing me and asking if I would attach my name to it. Like, who cares if my name was attached, but they cared. And I said, sure. And I said, I doubt this will get off the ground, but fine, go try. I mean, I'm not going to do anything, but you can put my name on the list.
Yeah, that mattered at some point.
I'm sure it did, but they wanted it, and then I was fine to give it to them. And that was in 2005 when they started organizing for 2006. Yeah. And lo and behold, not only did they do 2006, it's 2019, and it's a huge event. All credit to all those people. Boy, they worked hard and they got it done.
Yeah.
So it goes the showing up lesson that you always tell us is really manifested in the success of this conference.
Mm-hmm.
They showed up.
Yeah.
They called. They asked. They said, "Come to this." And some people said no, but some people said yes, and they had it. And then more people came, and and I mean, Elizabeth Warren's been coming since 2010, I think.
Yes,
before
that's a good
she was
point.
a senator. So I think Jen Hayden was one that said, yeah, she's one of us. So
yeah, I mean that's why I did see that tossed out as a sort of, well, of course, Elizabeth Warren got the biggest reception there. I guess the idea of throwing it out for this person was it's unfair because she's been to so many, and others pretty quickly pointed out that's called putting in the time,
Exactly, and that's a lesson you tell all of us. You want to be on the DNC. By the way, Chris Reeves was there, who is another great example of putting in the time. He's a DNC member. He gets input on the rules. He proposed to the DNC the Kansas rules for delegate selection. They moved they have a caucus, but they have an open caucus with virtual voting and early voting and everything else.
Yeah.
So they've really done as much as they can to make it accessible to everybody. They're gonna have ranked choice voting, which I'm a little skeptical is going to work. But knowing Chris, I know they'll put in the work and make it run as smoothly as possible. The reason I'm skeptical of ranked choice voting in the primaries, of course, is this 15% threshold. So what do you do? It's not like you can switch from second to first. There's no runoff per se. It's just the people whose candidates are below 15%. Well, then all of a sudden you're talking about not that many votes anyway, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, when it comes to mathematics, I don't want to speak off the cuff on math and probabilities, but I wonder whether ranked choice voting I wouldn't be surprised to find out that it was it contemplated. Well, obviously, general elections is where it's the most important, but doing it in a primary and with 20 possible candidates and with a 15% viability threshold, I think that might throw the math right out the window there, and you might find, that's weird. This great system that we devised for another purpose, admittedly, has left us with, we actually can't declare a winner here. We have to go back to the old way as a tiebreaker, ironically.
Right. I mean, suppose you're in first
I may be
by
wrong
3
about the math,
points. In theory, I guess
Yeah.
with the ranked choice voting, you could change the order of who the winner is. Again, if they make it work, terrific. I mean, but you're right. Its real application we've seen is in Maine, and we saw that it was consequential in Maine.
Yeah.
In the last governor's race in Maine, the Democratic candidate won after the ranked choice voting was applied.
I mean, it was invented with multiple candidates in mind, but more like 3 or possibly 4, so that there was no spoiler effect from 1 or 2 independent candidates. But when there's 20 and there's also no viability threshold to worry about in a general election, but that could be something. Boy, that would be a fun story to cover, except for the disaster.
Well, Chris is obviously on top of that. He's one of the leaders of the Democratic Party in Kansas.
And maybe if you run the numbers, it's just like, well, that's an interesting thought, but it's impossible that you won't have a viable candidate. So come on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. Kansas, I believe, is in April, so it's not one of the early ones, but it'll be an interesting experiment to see how it goes. We'll see. But Chris was there in Philadelphia. I was able to have dinner with him and a bunch of
cool.
other Cossacks.
Very nice.
That I always try to do. So it was nice to see him and talk to him. He's always one of the nicest guys in the world. He's like a clone of Greg, like just never a bad word about anybody.
Except
ever.
for wrongness.
Just the complete opposite of me. Really just and smart. He really just knows a lot about everything and very
nice.
Persuasive. He actually will take an idea that a lot of us are screaming about and actually work in the room to get it accomplished. And you can't underestimate how important people like that are. It's kind of like being a legislator. Sometimes, we like the people
point.
that are great at social media, but are they getting it done where it needs to get done in the room where the decisions are made? And Chris is somebody that does get things done in the room where the decisions are made. So it's as always, I like to point to your saying about people who complain. It says, well, here, go to the meeting, run for something. Then you'll get to do something about it. Or you can just do like the rest of us and just yell about it on Twitter. And
it's very popular.
Nothing happens.
Sure, I can't blame you for doing what's popular and fun, but it doesn't work.
It's fun
very
and
well.
easy, and but if you're really interested in getting it done, you're going to have to be more like Chris than like me. That's just the way it is.
Yes.
So that actually is an overarching theme of Netroots Nation. It's basically a lot of activist people who do things. For example, I went to a great panel on Amendment 4 in Florida, which, if you don't know, it was the one that restored the voting rights for felons who had completed their sentences.
Right.
And they talked about how they sold that and got it passed because in Florida, an amendment needs 60%. You would think a state like Florida, that would be very difficult, and I'm sure it was extremely difficult. But they messaged it. They talked about something called multi-layered messaging, like for a how can I put it without offending anybody? For white audiences, particularly white women, they talked about second chances. And while that didn't sit well with some of the activists, they understood it, and they said what was important for us, and this was Dwight Bullard, who's one of the premier activists in Florida, said, as long as I could deliver my message to my community the way I think I need to, and they said they gave them that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an interesting lesson. I don't know how else we apply it, but there must be ways to think about it and applying it in other circumstances.
Well, yeah, sure. There's the evil genius of segmented advertising on Facebook that Cambridge Analytica allegedly arranged for the Trump campaign.
Right, swing
Micro
twos, as they said in West Wing.
Yes.
I thought it was an interesting lesson, both for activism and for just plain electoral politics.
Mm-hmm.
So I recommend that, and I always like to shout out Dwight Bullard, who is one of the best activists in Florida. But people in Florida know that already. I just hope at some point someone recognizes him nationally and sees what an insightful guy he is. And again, just a shout out to everybody that went, because those are the people that go out there and do stuff, and I admire them so much because I don't do anything. I tweet, and I'll write a check occasionally, and I get to blather on your show, which you're kind enough to let me do. But those guys, they use the shoe leather, they go to the meetings, they write the proposals, they fight for the causes, and sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but they're in their own way, they're in the arena, and that's always very admirable in my view, whether I agree with what they're fighting for or not. It just brought to mind, again, to repeat your old admonition, if you don't show up, you don't really get it done.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great time, and I don't really know why I didn't put more time into planning going to one in Philadelphia. I mean, it was right here, and like you did, you should have drove up, but I instead involved myself in 10,000 other things locally, so I guess that's good.
No, that's important too.
Yes.
I mean, it would have been interesting to record a show there. You could have talked to some people there, but you know what? They got along just fine without us mostly, so I don't think that they missed us so much, but it would have been interesting for me. And again, I just went mostly as a spectator and said hello to a few people.
That's what I like about it.
And it was fun to do. And again, the people who put in the work to make that conference a success, they're going to Denver next year.
Yes.
I don't know that I'll go there, but maybe I will. It's a year from now.
Denver was
so who
nice.
knows?
Yes. It's not a new city for me though, so it's I like to be able to. Neither was Philly, but you know what? I'll put up with that just to say hi to people if I can.
Yeah, it's always good. And again, there's good people to talk to and find out what they're up to. And
I'm glad you got a chance to get there.
It says what works. But anyway, that's a year from now. Right now, we're obviously in the throes of everything else we're in the throes of, and it was good to be with largely like-minded people who hate Trump. So that's always good.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for the report. I'm glad you got a chance to go. I'm glad one of us was there milling about. And we'll talk more about it. I'm sure we'll be talking more about it during the balance of the week as I follow up on, I said there was some good writing over the weekend on the subject and more directly on the subject of what was going on at Netroots Nation, Huffington Post piece about the on running under the headline of Nancy Pelosi emerges as an unexpected villain at Netroots Nation, which is perhaps a little strong.
But it's a little overstated. I mean, she was a villain for 3 minutes.
Yep. Well, and I think that's also an important point and well made, and we wouldn't have that perspective if you hadn't have gone to tell us exactly how long that really went on. But that and the other point, Politico covering Sanders and Warren having astonishingly, as he said, little in common and totally different voting bases, and well observed there. Not focused, that one, on what happened at Netroots Nation, but a good companion piece. We got a lot to discuss about that. I am sure something more horrific and racist is going to happen between now and tomorrow's show. Probably between now and lunch, to be honest. So we'll be back to cover more of that. And if you happen to have more free time this week, be sure to chime in. Thanks for coming by.
Absolutely.
All right.
Happy to. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks again. Take care. And now time to turn things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. He also unable to, I think, make it to Philadelphia this year, but excited from what I can see on the Twitter machine about it being more towards the old West Coast next year. He has plans to attend. Let's see. What do we got here? I'm in the wrong section of my Skype, so I'm not going to be able to cram in all the really good stuff. Let's see what I can get in after the brief announcement right here.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
With David Waldman.
Hey, here's some good stuff. Speaking of the racism, indicted GOP Congressman Duncan Hunter sent a racist campaign mailer while out on bail. And the latest probe of the NRA could cost the organization its non-profit status. We'll look forward to the outcome of that one, plus much, much more gathered selectively by Justice. Next.